One button done up.
I'm very relaxed, as you can tell. I've been stretching. G'day, mate. It's been a while since you come on last. When was that?
That was 2 years ago, mate, when we did the yoga course.
Oh my God, they say
Byron.
2
years, bro.
Don't say that.
It was actually legit like 2 years ago. We were actually on the course then. Or was it end of the month? I think it was end of the month, end of February. I think we're on course.
Yeah, end of Feb, and then we got back, and March was when the world shut down. Yes. Let's not talk about that, Bart, because I think everyone's done that to death for 2 years.
I mean, there's been a lot of fucking great things that have happened in that time, if I'm honest.
Well, that's exactly what we need to unpack today, mate. 2 years worth of stories to tell.
I mean, and if there's someone to tell a story, it's Cobes.
And sorry, before you keep going, I keep undoing it because as soon as you bump the fucking buttons, that's going to fuck it all. Sorry, mate. It's mum and dad are going to have a little fight on camera.
On air. So you've gone from, we left you at the yoga camp, and then you went off and you've kind of been super busy. I think the year of 2022 is going to be Shaun Kober's explosion onto the world stage, mate. I mean, what happened? You took a guy who was a UFC bloke,
Peter Young. You could ask the guest who his professional fighter is.
Yeah, I mean, you've taken him from, obviously he was dominating, but you're strength and conditioning coach for that. People are going to want to know some little intricacies, and take us through it, mate. What the fuck was that all about?
That was a very vague question, Mech, so I'll do my best to unpack that, bro, and give the audience
mate, you're lucky
what they want.
You're lucky you got the end of the question. Normally I just fucking haze out. And then they're like, like that.
Yeah, so I was waiting for the rest of that. Yeah, so I left you boys on that course. I got back to Thailand about 10 days before everything locked down, and 2020 was kind of obviously a weird year, like the world lockdown. A lot of people, around the world lost their lives, lost family members, lost their livelihood, etc. I was already planning on starting a podcast when I got back to Thailand, and like literally the day before I flew back to Thailand, I bought everything that I needed with the intent of, doing a podcast course, learning everything that I could before I launched.
Oh, you did a podcast course?
Yeah, bro.
Fuck.
Yeah, I've got a couple of podcast courses that I've been going through. So you can hear like my first podcast episodes are absolutely terrible, but then I've been progressively getting better as I've been going, which has been awesome, man, because, it's been an investment for me. And we'll kind of dive into that side of the business, what I'm doing, et cetera, as we go through this conversation. But basically, I got back to Thailand, everything locked down for about 3 months. March through to I think July or August or something like that. But anyway, I'd been training Peter Yan, who made his debut in the UFC in 2018, and we worked together for his debut as well as I think the subsequent, by that stage it would have been 4 or 5 fights in the UFC. And through that lockdown period, that first lockdown period, I was actually training him. He was coming around to my place. And I was putting him through strength and conditioning with very minimal equipment in preparation for his title fight against Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight title. So he went away, won that fight, got the title, and then got a fight against Aljamain Sterling for his first title defense. And anyone who follows the UFC knows what happened. Aljamain came out, tried to flurry and then take him down, ended up burning himself out, and Yan just started picking him apart, man, and put him on his back. I think he had like 7 takedown defenses or something, where Aljamain actually ended up on his back himself. And then in the 4th round, he threw an illegal knee to a downed opponent. He had 3 points contact. I think he had a foot down, a knee down, and 1 hand down. So, technically speaking, he was a downed opponent. Yan threw the knee. Aljamain put on a little bit of a show, ended up getting handed the belt. And then, I wasn't part of that fight camp. It was obviously everything was locked down.
Because I didn't see that fight. Was he was dominating the fight, so I've been told. And then literally, like you said, the guy sort of churched it up and, Hollywood acting level 12.
I mean, he legit got hit by a knee whilst he was down. So, you're not expecting that. But Yan just mistimed it, man. He got it wrong. He mistimed it. He's owned up to it. He's, taken responsibility for it. And in fact, the last fight camp where I went over to Russia and then Dubai, which I'll come back to in a moment, he made a joke about it through the public, public workout when they, had the coaches, the grappling coaches, striking coaches, just all for the cameras, the media stuff, where he hit his striking coach with a flying knee whilst he was down. So yeah, it was really cool. Funny dudes, man. We'll probably dive into, the fight camp and everything, as we go through this conversation. But, that title defense against Aljamain Sterling, I wasn't part of that camp. He normally comes to Tiger, trains in Thailand, does his fight camps out here. So he's got his whole team out here, our whole coaching staff, which he didn't have access to. So he flew his his boxing coach over to America, and they trained out of American Top Team in Florida. And during the fight and after the fight, I left it a week. I sent him a message. I said, hey man, it sucks to see you lose a title like that. I look forward to working together again in the future. We'll make sure that, the work's done and, you get another shot at the title. And he messaged back and he goes, Coach, I missed you. I missed the spark. I missed the power. I missed the conditioning. And his striking coach said the same thing. So, fast forward to July last year, 2021, and I get a message from Jan on WhatsApp. Hey coach, can you come to Russia? I'm fighting Aljamain again. I want you to fly to Russia. Are you available? And I was like, fuck yeah, bro. So I walked into the office at work and I was like, hey boss, Peter Yarns asked me to go to Russia. So, I'm going to be taking 2 months off and I'm going to be obviously representing Tiger Muay Thai whilst I'm there. So he was like, yep, sweet, let's go.
What does it do? Who pays for the flights across? Is it the fighter? Is it Tiger? Is it yourself?
Yeah. So, Jan covered everything, man. Paid for my visa. Sorted out all the admin side of things for the visa. I had to get an invitation letter for a special visa to fly into Russia. And that was a bit of a mission as well, just getting to Russia. And, obviously filling out the declaration, former Australian soldier, blah, blah, blah. So the boys were joking like, Putin's going to have someone on you, bro.
Daddy Putin.
So yeah, he paid for everything, man. He paid for the flights, paid for all the visa, sorted out all the admin there. Once I got to Russia, he picked me up from the airport. We drove a couple of hours, 3.5 hours back to the training camp. He'd flown in all his striking coaches, grappling coaches, myself, strength and conditioning coach, and his training partners. And we did 7 weeks in Russia and then went over to UAE and spent 2 weeks in Dubai and then a week in Abu Dhabi. So had a 10-week camp all up. And then, I ended up finding out a week before the fight that I was in the corner for his title shot. And, it was absolutely incredible experience for me to be able to be in the corner and experience what was going on at a live event after the work that we put in and after the years that we've worked together. So
that seems
it was an amazing experience.
A strength and conditioning coach in the corner of a UFC fighter, is that industry standard per se, or... And I guess the follow-on was, is it because he saw something else in you outside of just strength and conditioning? Was there a spiritual or emotional or some? That's the question. Conversation.
Right. Yeah, so not usual, no. But we have worked together for many years and, I trained him for years for free. And that was part of my investment in learning my craft. And, I used him as a guinea pig to test out my systems and frameworks and, tweak and adjust. So then I can apply those same systems to other fighters. So it was always an investment for me. And he, after I think it was his third fight, he tried to pay me for one of our sessions. And I was like, I don't want your money, bro. Like, this is an investment for me. You'll pay me back one day. You'll take me to one of your title fights. And, I'll get to experience that live. That's enough payment for me. So obviously I wasn't part of that fight camp against Aljamain Sterling. Got the call, went over to Russia, contributed to, his fight camp, played my piece, played my part as a piece of the puzzle, along with the other coaches. And he asked me to go to Dubai with him. A week before the fight, his manager just flown over, who also works at Tiger Muay Thai, And I was on the phone with one of my friends, and my friend was like, hey, where are you sitting in the crowd? We want to catch up. I was like, oh, Syat, where am I sitting? And he looks at me and he goes, you're in the corner, bro. And I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. And we'd just finished a training session. Jan was down on the beach whilst we were in Dubai. We were staying at Dubai Marina. Walked down the beach and I was like, hey, man, thank you very much for putting me in the corner. What do you want me to do? And he just looked at me and he goes, coach, you control situation. And I was like, okay. And then I went and spoke to Syat. His manager speaks 5 languages, speaks great English. So I was like, hey, man, I spoke to Peter and he said, yeah, control situation. What do you actually want me to do in the corner? And he goes, dude, he just wants you there because of your presence. You don't need to do anything. His striking coach is going to be the lead. He's going to be the only voice. He just wants you there for your presence. And I was like, fuck, man, that's really cool. So, it was really, it was an amazing moment, man, to find out that I was going to be in the corner and that I wasn't really required to do anything, but I definitely felt like an imposter. I was like, we've just gone through this 10-week fight camp with these absolute killers, all these Russian dudes. I feel like his training partners, some of his best friends, probably would have been a better suit to be in the corner. But maybe he felt that after the years of investment and training him for free that, he wanted to reward me and have me in the corner. And I've spoken to a couple of other people about this as well. I actually did a podcast on the whole process a week within that week after he actually won that title. And, I had a little bit of time to process everything. And I recorded a solo podcast episode and it was actually quite lackluster. So I got on one of my mates. He had a great conversation with him and he was just asking genuine questions. And that was something that came up was, asking how I felt being in the corner and me saying I felt like an imposter. And he was like, well, dude, you're a fucking sniper in the army, man. You've been in these situations where you do control the situation. And, he's obviously picked up on that and been like, well, I want this guy in my corner because he brings something else that maybe other people aren't offering.
So did you drop any one-liners on him? Through the fight, his coaches are all going, bah, 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 throw a knee. But did you go, I'm just going to wait. I've got this one-liner. This will make him win the fight. Did you throw any advice at him?
Mate, I actually did say something in I think leading into the 4th round. I was on the outside of the cage. So the 2 of the coaches, there's 4 people in the corner. There was 2 on the inside of the cage, 2 on the outside. I was on the outside of the cage. And his kickboxing coach was the main voice. And, he finished talking about 10 seconds before the bell rang to go out and kick off the 4th round. And I just said, breathe, control situation.
Good. That's all you got. It's like writing a resume. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, what do you want me there for? He goes, you just control situation. It's like, cool. The one-liner I'm going to throw out is, hey, Peter, control the situation. Yeah. It's just copy and paste, feed them back what they want to hear.
Exactly, man.
Is there a montage, so training in Russia, are they hardier people than Australians? Going there, we know that Rocky 2, I think it was Rocky 2 won it, we went off to Russia, and are they hardier people or is it much of a muchness, really?
That's difficult to answer, man, because look at who I was there with, one. I was there with those guys, and everywhere we went, people were recognizing them. Jan's got 1.3 million followers on Instagram or some shit. So he was putting stories up when we'd, leave camp on the weekend and we'd go and venture out and, chill out a little bit, get some sunshine and just, live a little bit of a normal day, so to speak. And he'd put a story up on his Instagram and people would rock up, man, and be running along the path that we'd just been walking along to try and catch up with him and get photos and things like that. It was pretty funny. There was one guy that come running up and, we're on this big cliff face on the coast and there was a heap of, I think it was 800, it's called 800 steps, I think, a heap of stairs going down to, going down the face of this cliff down onto this pebble beach. It was quite steep and there was a lot of steps. And we'd gone down, he got stories, put them up on social media. We swam on the beach, we come back up and it was a path that was going crawling along the coastline and people were running along trying to find him. And one guy ran up and went blah, 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 blah in Russian. And Jan said something, and the dude like just nodded and turned around and started running off. And all the boys started laughing and called him back. And I was like, and then blah, 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 blah. They end up getting a photo. And I was like, what just happened? And they're like, oh, that guy asked for a photo. Jan told him to run down the bottom of the beach, come back up, and he'd give him a photo.
Got to earn it, mate.
They're funny dudes, man. They're real funny dudes. Like, I was spending probably 4 to 6 hours with these guys every day. You know, we kind of lived on it was almost like being on barracks again. You know, there was a heap of buildings, accommodation, lines. There was a mess, a pool, a gym, tennis court, soccer field. It was right on the beach. So, you know, we'd have all of our meals together. We're doing all the training sessions together in the gym. You know, so I'm spending 4 to 6 hours with these guys every day. And there was times when I was like, man, I wish I spoke Russian, because there was, you know, we'd be sitting around the dinner table and one person would say something and then someone else would kind of laugh and throw something back at them, and then someone else would like throw something back, and then the laughter would get louder, and then someone else, it was just throwing banter, man. The boys just throwing banter. And I was like, fuck, I wish I could contribute to this conversation, because like I feel like I could. I feel like they're, you know, funny dudes, and we share a lot of similarities, just being guys and, you know, training hard and spending a lot of time together. It's almost like being on deployment or going through, you know, IETs or something like that. We share a lot of similarities.
There wasn't an Antonio Banderas 13th Warrior moment where you just clicked and you started speaking Russian and understanding it?
Well, there was one guy, a Dagestani guy, like a really good wrestler, man. I couldn't understand what the fuck he was saying. He couldn't understand what the fuck I was saying. But we just had this mutual communication where he would say something and I would just nod, because I felt like I understood what he was talking about. And the thing was, like, you know, most communication's 70% non-verbal-ish. So, you know, I really had to tune into those non-verbal cues.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. Like, I was in Bosnia in 2015, out on the piss. I think if you're out on the piss with people, you have a few beers, and I mean, I'm pretty deaf when I'm on the piss and there's music, and you get into subconsciously just reading body language. Did you notice that? Because I mean, so what I noticed was that after about 2 hours with these people, I had no idea what the words were coming out their mouth, but I knew what the intent was. And you could get to the point where we didn't have to do anything. We're just two dudes in a bar, but I had like this English to Bosnian conversation for like an hour. And we ended up going, yeah, like you're just shaking your head. You're like, and if you don't really know, you just laugh and you're like, yeah, he's laughing, I'll laugh. So did you get to the point, the question, did you get to the point where after enough time with these people, you can kind of gauge what their intent is?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, as I said, you pick up on those non-verbal cues, and you know, you're reading body language, you're reading facial expressions, and you kind of, I mean, I was 6 or 7 Russian dudes at the dinner table every day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Like you get a feel for the conversation and, you know, what they're talking about. And, you know, sometimes I'd pull it up on Google Translate and be like, what are you guys talking about? And they'll be like, oh, we're talking about whatever. And I'm like, I felt like you guys were talking about something there because of the way that they were communicating with each other. So yeah, we definitely started picking up on those things and tuning into those things.
Yeah, that's gold. Mate, going back to what you're saying, I hope I didn't take this wrong. I think I got what you were putting down. Like, the world's interpretation of Russians is they are all hard. They are all fucking cage fighting. There's 100, I don't know, what's their population? 100 and something million, 100, whatever it is. It's like every male in Russia is a hardened, war-fighting fucking savage. And it's like, well, maybe. But maybe the most famous Russians are the ones fighting in the UFC. And therefore, they give the reputation that everyone in Russia is like them. But I get the impression that it's like coming to Australia and going, yeah, if you're hanging around a UFC gym, you think Australians are pretty fucking tough. Sorry, I made a comment to Max saying I wasn't going to swear. I just realised I swore 4 times in one sentence just then. But in reality, you walk out on the street and the rest of the country as a whole is not anything like a UFC fighter. Is it the same in Russia, or is there the volume of tough dudes or hard men to soft men, is it higher, the ratio in Russia than over here?
It's a good question, man. It's definitely something that you notice. Like, before going to Russia and immersing myself in the culture, I definitely felt, you know, that kind of standoffishness from Russians, and you know, always kind of wondered why that was. But once I was actually immersed in their culture and I was hanging around these guys so much, man, like, you know, you would see them act one way in public and then they'd be a little bit different behind closed doors, you know, when they're with their own people, when they're with their friends, you know, they're laughing a lot more. And, you know, what I realized was they're actually really funny dudes, man, that I was spending time with, you know, so it kind of softened up my view of Russians.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. It was a podcast I was listening to about a year and a half ago. I was a Russian dude, and he's like, when the difference is, the reason people think Russians are harder or rough, or whatever, is because in normal day-to-day conversation, they just don't worry about the fluff. It's very direct and very, very unfiltered. And I rate it. And to give you a bit of context, I don't know if I'm ready for this on the podcast. The last two girls I've dated have both been Russian, and I got suspicious for a minute there. I'm like, 2 Russians in a row. I've never met a Russian girl in Australia before. Then I meet 2 back to back. I'm like, yeah, the bloody, what do you call it? KGB's probably got something to do with this. But at the same time, like I found that I got along with them way better because I prefer a conversation that is unfiltered and very, very blunt. And they just are. If they don't like, if you're going to do something, it's not like, what do you want for dinner? And you go back and forward for 5 hours because they don't actually tell you. It's like, what do you want for dinner? It's like, I want this. And if you can't get that, then I'm going to be unhappy about it. I'm like, that's honesty, and I love it. I think I might have to go there, mate. I think I might have to go there for a holiday.
Yeah. It's a cool place, man. But as I said, that was my experience. Is probably different to a lot of people's. If you're going there as a tourist, then, you know, it is going to be a different experience because I was seeing those guys behind the doors and, you know, they were having conversations, and it's kind of weird to smile at someone in public in Russia.
Really?
Yeah, man.
You just don't do it. Oh, yeah, I don't know if I could do that. I've got to smile and say good day to everyone, even in Sydney.
Why the fluff, bro?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Is that fluff or is that just giving people like a bit of love for the day? I don't know. Maybe I'll cut away smiling at people and see what happens.
Is that how you picked up the Russian girl, mate?
No, dating apps, mate. Dating apps.
You just smiled at her and she's like, hey, no one does that back home.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's the thing. We get a group of Aussie boys. We go to Russia, go to Moscow for a week, just smile at every girl on the street.
And probably get bashed.
Yeah. By the chicks, I'd say.
So what's the, obviously you don't want to give any deficiencies away. As a strength and conditioning coach for a UFC fighter, what do you, and I know not going right into the nitty gritty, but what are you actually teaching them, training them on as a fighter? Is it particular muscle groups? Is it movements? Or is it just like, what is it?
That is a very difficult question, Max. It depends. There's my answer.
That's a good answer.
It does legit depend on the athlete. It depends on their strengths, their weaknesses, how long we've got, what their game plan is, who they're fighting, what organization, you know, different organizations have different rules. So yeah, every single fight camp's different. Every athlete's different. I need to do an athlete analysis and figure out what they need. And again, tie in with all of those other variables I spoke about. A lot of the time it is working on strength, stability, power, speed, endurance, stamina, energy system conditioning. If I've only got 4 weeks with someone, then maybe I have to run like a conjugate system where I'm doing a little bit of everything in each session. I might only have them, 1, 2, 3 times a week. If I've got a longer period of time, then I'm going to go through like a block periodization model where I'll go from, like in Russia, for example, I went through strength and stability for about 3 weeks and then went through power development for 2 weeks and then transferred to speed and power endurance and conditioning for about 3 weeks, and then it was just about tapering off and tightening everything up. But a lot of things that I do is about force production, force transfer, force application. Okay, so what I'm doing in the gym needs to be able to carry over to what they're doing in their skill sessions. If they're throwing kicks, if they're throwing punches, if they're grappling, etc., they need to be able to organize their body into a manner to produce the most amount of force with the least amount of movement and allow that force that they're producing to carry through the kinetic chain and be applied to someone's face, hopefully.
So do you get a brief from their head coach of like he's coming to you, he wants to come to you, obviously. I mean, I'm sure it's different every time, but Peter Yarn's obviously put his hand up and say, oh, hey, I want to go and train with Cobes again. Does the head coach write you a training brief or a set of orders to go, hey, these are the objectives. This is what I'm working on with him at the moment. This is what I need you to do.
It depends. Yeah, this was a cool thing about being in Russia, man, was I was like working. I was one of the team, striking coach, grappling coach, strength and conditioning coach, plus training partners. So we had a really good system where we'd be working together. You know, we're training twice a day. If I had strength and conditioning in the morning and I knew that he had, his kickboxing skills in the afternoon, I would talk to his coach and be like, hey, what are you planning on doing this afternoon? How hard's this session going to be? Blah, blah, blah. And then I would make some adjustments to my session. Or I'd talk to him and say, hey, I need to really put the foot down in my sessions for the next couple of weeks. I need you to back it off a little bit. So we had really good communication between all of the coaches and all the training partners about, working different intensities and undulating those intensities so that we were working together rather than and complementing each other's training sessions rather than taking away from each other's sessions, which was it was a really cool experience because in Tiger, sometimes you don't have that communication. There is a disconnect between the different coaches. So when Jan was training for Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight title, he was doing his strength and conditioning with me twice a week, and then he was doing boxing with our boxing coach, and then he was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then he was wrestling, and then he was doing MMA sessions. So he's working with 4 or 5 other coaches, and every single coach is like pushing him to the max. So then I was having to back off some of our sessions because I could see that he was dragging his heels. His head was a little bit low and his energy levels were low, man. And he was tired. So, I was looking at that stuff and constantly making adjustments. So, over the years, it's been good to tie in with the other coaches because then we link in a lot better and, are able to come up with a plan together to then put together the best training plan to allow him to be peaking at the right time. So for Jan, for example, he doesn't have a head coach. Like he's his own head coach. He just puts the people that he wants in the positions that he wants to then guide that process.
That's a big move.
He's kind of like a patrol-based commander in Afghanistan, right? He just says like I had a great patrol-based commander that would just go, hey boys, this is what we want to achieve. Snipers, what are you guys going to do? Engineers, what are you guys going to do? Mortars, what are you guys going to do? Security section, what are you guys going to do? Blah blah blah. And like the boys would come up with a plan.
Yeah, the boy. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's a big. I mean, it would be interesting to track him. It would be interesting to track him over as he retains his belt, like to see whether he brings on someone just to. I mean, a head coach, realistically, that's just your coordinator, and all the other people are still plugging in. To take that on yourself seems like a fucking lot of distraction. To go, hey, I've got to put together, or I've got to coordinate my own trainers. But I guess, I mean, if you're good and you know what you want, then that's you don't really want other people putting their finger in the pie. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, exactly, man. He's got a team around him, right? And he's got all of his team that he had in Russia. They're all here. They're all at Tiger right now.
Yeah, right.
So he's found the winning formula and he's just flown all those guys in, man. So he hasn't changed anything.
Oh. Sorry, I just got to make the screen bigger, mate. Your face was getting too small. How's since Jan? I mean, obviously, any question. There's a few questions I've got coming up that if you got to let too much out of the bag and you don't want to, then just tell us to fuck off. Oh, I've done it again. Just swore again. How's it been since then? Because he's yeah, I know. I really want to get this podcast to the point where we don't swear at all, but I'm the main offender.
I've been trying for 2 years, bro.
It doesn't work, mate. How many years in the army? 5, 6, 7, whatever. That many years of swearing in every second sentence, you can't turn it off. How's it been, mate? Like, how is Peter? If someone else comes up and goes, hey, like another UFC fighter, high level fighter comes up and goes, hey, mate, I've seen you work with him. I want you to work with me. Is he going to be okay for you to do two known fighters at the same time?
Oh man, I'm working with a number of fighters at the moment.
Any
got a guy
big
fighting
names?
one championship. He's fighting for the heavyweight title. We're recording this on Thursday, 10th of February. So tomorrow night he's fighting for the heavyweight title, one championship.
Everyone thinks this goes out live, mate. Well, you've just ruined it.
Now you've put the fucking pressure on, mate.
We'll end up taking 4 weeks to edit this, mate. They'll be like, 10th of Feb, what have you been doing?
That's all good, mate. All my fighters would have fought by then.
Oh, good. Yeah, good.
I've got Kane Musa, who's co-main event at Bellator Dublin in a couple of weeks' time. I think 25th of February. Marlon Moraes, I've been training him for the last couple of weeks. Got another couple of weeks in fight camp, and then a number of other guys that I've been working with, that have worked with in the past, that I'm working with again. So, yeah, really cool.
That's sick.
Is it a projection of confidence that you think? So obviously, your persona that you are, the person you are, and the persona and what you project, that level of confidence. Do you think that helps in a coaching environment? And is that the true representation of your internal dialogue, or is that the you put your superhero suit on when you go to work in the morning? Or
no, man, that is who I am. The persona that comes across in whatever social media or podcast or whatever, like, you know, you can't fucking cheat these long form conversations, man. And in my mind, like, the more authentic you are, the more you're going to attract the people that like enjoy your content and, you know, resonate with you. And people that don't resonate with you, then they don't follow you. So who gives a fuck?
Correct. You're allowed to swear as much as you want, by the way, mate. No, that's 100% right. I mean, everyone's got... I know Max is asking you the question, but every time he asks a question, it's got layers to it. I'm like, how would I have answered this one? Not that I'm going to give you an answer, because I know no one wants to interview me. That's fine. But I think it's like everyone does have multiple personalities in one, and it's like the one that you put across is always consistent, that I've noticed, like social media and the way you train people. And I mean, realistically, like when we came to Thailand a couple of years ago, we met a couple of times before, but not really. And and it was apparent pretty much straight away, especially when you went from, I mean, there is a little, you obviously know how to wind it back a bit when you're not coaching, but it's very authentic, and I loved it. Like it's very Russian when I think about it. It's like your coaching style is very much like, you're going to do it this way because I've learnt my shit. Like I've been studying for years. I know what you need, so just do it, and you just give them black and white, and it's no fluff. And I think it works, mate. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's what attracts the Russians to want you to train them.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good point. Never really thought about that.
Just keep doing it, mate. Keep being brutal with no filter is the point of my story.
Thanks, bro.
On the backside of all this, I mean, what's happened post the fight and the training? Because there's a whole lot more outside of this. You're sort of going to up and up. There's a million things we can go on with. What's been the biggest eye opener on the back of this fight for you, mate?
I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, man. I feel like I'm almost at this tipping point with my career, you know, and I have been grinding away for almost 5 years. I've been in Thailand, you know, so it has been a lot of hard work. It has been, you know, I have had to persevere, man, because definitely been times where I've had opportunities to, you know, potentially move back to Australia and run a gym or go to Japan and, you know, work with professional rugby teams. So I've definitely had other opportunities. But I feel like I'm, you know, everything that I've been building towards is kind of coming to a head now. And, you know, obviously getting that opportunity to go over to Russia and then being in the corner for Jan. After that, I had a week of deload, downtime, and then I actually went over to India and did some work over there. So I can't say too much on the India gig right now, but I was filming with a prominent channel, prominent network, and that will be coming out in the next couple of months. So that was an incredible experience as well, man. Two completely different experiences, two different projects, but both amazing in their own right. And once that project drops in the next couple of months, I feel like, you know, my reputation, my brand, my name is just going to like explode, especially through Southeast Asia. And, you know, I'm working with a number of high level fighters at the moment, and I've got very little general population clients. at the moment. So my general population clients, like they pay the bills. They're the ones that pay me the big dollars. And then the athletes, like they're paying me a reduced rate, right? But I'm doing that because I'm in a position where I'm building, and I'm still quite new to the combat sports world. I know what I'm doing in terms of strength and conditioning, but it's only been the last couple of years that I've been able to have the opportunity to work with mixed martial artists and, take those skills and knowledge from my rugby background and my military background and then apply that to combat sports athletes. So I feel like I'm in a really good place right now. I'm building out my website. I'm writing up some training programs. I've got some mindset ebooks, nutrition ebooks, and that type of thing that I'm building out at the moment, which is going to go live in the next couple of months. So maybe something we can talk about a little bit offline as well.
Mate, absolutely. I can't talk about it online, but we have a digital platform that might interest you that we'll talk about offline after this is finished. But absolutely, mate, it sounds sick. I mean, I've noticed you're always busy, which is, you got to be. Everyone, I believe it's part of staying mentally healthy and happy is you don't want to be over busy, but you need to be busy. Your brain and your body both need to be moving always. And you always seem to be. I really wanted to drill down into what happened in India, but I don't think we can by the sound of it.
I think that piece that you sort of spoke about where, and I know absolutely, mate, I've met you. I've just, your depth of knowledge in your field is phenomenal, man. So, but I spoke to another bloke. I was up in Townsville and he was nothing. He was nobody, dropped out of school, dyslexic, year 7, maths and English, stayed at home, retarded.
Whoa, you'll have to bleep that one out. Hang on, what is it? 29:30. We've got to cut 10 seconds out.
Shit.
That shit will get you. Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
That's worse than swearing, bro.
It is these days.
Oh God. But he was on the dole and he rocked up to a job site and it was earth moving plant equipment for this big company. And he's like, look, they wouldn't give him a job. I said, nah, budget's tight. And he's like, look, I don't want you to pay me. I just want to come and get work experience. And he said he rocked up and for months he just worked his ass off, like balls deep every day, worked. And then by the end of his 3 months rocked up, they're like, dude, you got a job. And then he just cracked it from there. And I know that's not that you, but that knowledge of saying you give someone that opportunity, that's your segue into the world, isn't it? Going like, I know what I've got to offer. How do I put the cherry on the top and you pick me?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about that investment. I had to put myself in a position where, I was going up to these fighters and being like, hey, do you have a strength and conditioning coach? Can I put you through a training program, for the next 4 weeks and let's see how you perform in this next fight? And, that's how you build proof of concept. And it was years of investment before, I was actually getting paid from these fighters. So now I'm in a position where, I've guys that have just returned and I've trained for free in the past. I'm saying to them, they're like, hey, coach, I want to work with you. I'm like, hey, man, I can't train you for free right now. Like, I'm so fucking busy and, I need to pick and choose who I'm working with. And like, if you're not willing to pay, then I'm not working with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll leave that spot for someone else.
And I think that's like the younger generation, we have to admit, like there's an issue. The younger generation want to get paid twice as much as they're worth for doing nothing, and that's going to be a problem. And I always get these people saying like we can't go to the American model of internships where the company demands you do a 12-month internship or whatever it is, working for free because they just want free labor for the mundane jobs, and then they pitch it out as, oh, we're going to give you the experience you need to then go and get a job. That's the company dictating. That would be like a fighter coming to you saying, I need you to train me for free. And if I dangle the carrot for long enough, you'll get some return at the end of it. Like that's very different to you, a fighter coming to you and you saying, hey, I want to train you for free because I got to learn the ropes. I think I'm concerned about the younger generation and their attitude towards needing to be paid like they're training the UFC champion when they just did their Cert 3 in fitness.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's that's the world that we live in, bro. It's this instant gratification. No longer are people able to, put off that return on investment.
I want to know. So the physicality. You're a physical guy, rugby, sniper in the army, strength and conditioning coach. In these corners for these guys, But you're a complete package in regards to what do you do when you go up to a fighter and back in the 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you're like, hey, can you fight? Can I train you? And they're like, no, I don't want your fucking program, mate. And constantly getting knocked back. What is it? Was there tools that you used then to help you on the spiritual or internal side to get through it? Because, everyone's going to say, oh, fucking Cobes, he's an overnight success. You're like, nah, bro, I've been getting my dick stood on for fucking 10 years. Do you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, man. Like I said, when I first came to Thailand almost 5 years ago in June, I knew that there was a gap in my knowledge, particularly with the guys that I want to work with and, the athletes and the fighters that I want to work with. So I had to put myself in that position where I was asking these guys if I could train them and they were saying no. And, I had to accept that. And I was like, all right, well, what can I do to, win them over? And then, I'd go to boxing classes or I'd go to, the wrestling classes, and I'd put myself in these positions where I was fucking uncomfortable and I was way out of my depth. And this is what I'm doing this year, man. I'm really focusing on making sure that I learn as much about their sport as I can. And, I've been doing jiu-jitsu twice a week. I've been going to MMA sparring, been going to boxing sparring. And I haven't done any lifting for probably like 4 weeks now. And I'm probably going to maintain that for the next at least 3 months. So that I can show these guys that, hey, I'm a fucking beginner in their world, but the base that I've built over many, many years of, solid strength, speed, power, conditioning, etc., that stuff all transfers over to your skills. So if I can put myself in a position where, I can prove to these guys what's going on, not only with myself, but these high-level athletes that I'm already working with.
Mate, I love that. That concept has utility in almost every avenue of business and probably life. Like where you go up to fighter and try and pitch yourself and go, hey, you should let me train you and sell. Like here's all the, you're like, fuck no. Like it is sales 101 or business pitching 101 it's not about what you've got and how well you can pitch it. It's about what they need and how well you can drill down on what they need. And that's a lesson. If anyone listening to this wants to take it away, it's like, don't ever try and sell yourself. Just shut up and listen for a bit. Figure out what people need, go away, become better at that, and then come back and go, hey, I've got what you need now. That hopefully someone from DVA is listening to this and they're like, it's not about what you got, it's about what we need. Anyway, I'm very good at going down rabbit holes, I've realised.
Mex is good at pulling you up, mate.
Yeah, good. No, but I like it, bro.
That's a great point, mate. Like, and that's why I'm putting myself in that position, is because, like, one, I need to understand how these guys move, how they feel in certain positions. But two, like, it's for my own credibility, because one of the reasons why a lot of fighters didn't want to work with me when I first got to Tiger was because I didn't have any mixed martial arts experience or combat sports experience, so now's about building the credibility and, having them understand that, hey, I'm willing to put myself in this position. I'm going to step into your world and you can see what my world brings to yours. And maybe you want to bring your world over to my world and we can see if we can work together and complement each other.
Oh, mate, that's another one. That absolutely. And that's got utility across different cultures as well. Like, I've learned everything out of a textbook. Therefore, here's all this stuff. Like I can preach like this is the textbook answer. I am the expert. That's fantastic. But lived experience is pretty much what you just defined, right? It's like you don't have to be the best fighter in the world to come and train me. You just need to understand what my world is, and you got to go away and learn that. And once you've learned it, it's like you step in the ring. Like you're probably a decent fighter now, but you step in the ring with Peter Young, you're probably going to get in a bit of trouble, right? And so you don't need to be as good as them. I grew up watching all different sports, rugby, tennis, whatever it was, and I was always questioning, like, how do you get a coach who's never been to Wimbledon to train a Wimbledon athlete? It's like, that's not the point. You just need to understand the world, understand the culture and the lifestyle, and then you share some experience. And that must have been tough, like, to get, because approaching fighters as a non-fighter is daunting enough, but approaching them and going, hey, I want to become someone who trains you to make you better, That's got to be a daunting thing. How old were you when you first started training fighters?
36 now. I was 33, I think, 32, 33 when I first got to Tiger.
A few years. Yeah, mate.
Would have been 32, just turned 32.
It's probably, I mean, the more I talk about this stuff and go, everything you're saying as far as training fighters and being in a fight kind of culture environment has utility in life in general. And then I say it out loud. I'm like, of course it does, you idiot. Like, humans evolved fighting for everything. I'm like, but it does. It seems like the practices and the culture around a fight camp, fight gym, fight life has lessons that will cross cultures.
100%, man. I mean, you think about sports. We grew up playing sports, all right? Like, what did you learn from sports? You learn that, you're going to be good at some sports and you're not going to be good at other sports. And you're also going to learn that, if you put in some time, energy, effort into specific training, you can get better at those things. You also learn that, you need to be a part of a team. And if you're in part of a team, sometimes you need to play a role as a team member. You might be the best player in the team, but maybe you get pushed to a different position because, there's two other players that play the same position and they're not as versatile as you. They might not be the best player in that position, but they're going to play in that position because you can be better utilized somewhere else, right? And you're also going to learn that sometimes you fucking lose. Sometimes you put in the preparation and things don't go your way. Like, sports has taught me so many things in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my oldest kid started school last week, and across the road from their high school, primary school, this little karate class. As soon as I dropped him off, I walked in, I had to hit the bloke up and go, hey, what's your timetable and your schedule? Because I've got to get the young fella in here. The only negative I've ever thought about was, like, I always wanted him to do team sports because I've always thought, like, team sports teaches you X, Y, Z, like how to find your place in a group of people. Mm-hmm. Do you think I'm sure this varies from fighter to fighter, but is fighting a team sport, do you think?
100%, man. I've spoken to a couple of high-level strength and conditioning coaches for my podcast recently, and this is something that we've spoken about is, again, going back to Jan, he's in Thailand right now training out of Tiger Muay Thai, and his entire training team is here with him, the same team that he had in Russia, right? So, he's putting the right people in the right positions to get him to where he needs to be, get him peaking at the right time. And as much as it is an individual sport, and once he, steps under those lights and the cage closes behind him, it's up to him. It's been a team that's got him into that position. And everyone needs to play their role, man.
Being coming from a rugby background and army, and I think we all have little superstitions, like guys doing particular things before a game. And does he have is it overly superstitious? Like, I've got to touch my left ear 3 times, spin around the circle once, and then go in the ring. I mean, these sort of superstitions, do you think that's part of the reason why they build these teams and they see something?
Was there more to that question?
I was waiting for it. That was the old next question fade away. I feel like your brain processes words. You're like, I want to ask this. I need an answer to this, but I don't know how to verbalize it. And you put some words together and you're like, where do I put the question mark? There, no, I've got a bit more, there's a bit more. There, no, shut up, Max.
It's all CTE, let's blame that.
Yeah, too many explosions.
Superstition. I mean, UFC fighters, do you think they're superstitious?
I think it depends on the person. I mean, you look at when you play rugby, for example, or you step out on patrol or whatever, you're always going to go through a routine. Our days are built around habits. So I know for me, if I'm about to step out on the paddock and I'm in the changing rooms, I'm listening to some music, I'm about to boot up, I'm always going to put on my right sock first, and then my left sock, and then my right boot, and then my left boot, and then I'm going to tie my right shoelace, and then my left shoelace. And once I do that, it's like I'm triggering something in my mind where I'm like, all right, this is the habit that I go through. Now I go through my routine, right? And then that gets me in the right mindset where I can then transition from being chilled, listening to music, whatever, to then now starting to visualize and focusing on the task at hand and going through the mental and physical preparation needed to before we step out of the change room and start the warm up, right?
Yeah, is it
So I think the same
belief
thing with
systems?
man, and
That's always
once sorry.
Yeah, it's that belief system stuff where you go, you look at teams who are, or even tennis players, like there are. I honestly look at it and think these teams physically, when you look at physically, like that guy's 6'10", blah blah blah. You go, even a forward pack in the scrum when they're weighing up, and I know there's a lot of skill involved, but if we can, I know we can reduce that somewhat to the argument and oversimplify it. Once you take away the weights and the same, in order for teams to be superior for 10 years, so like, when Essendon was in the AFL or, all these teams that have like, you see this 10 to 15 year period where they're on the top and they're invincible. You're like, they're not that different. And then suddenly they'll fall off the ladder or the belief system, or they'll change some boys out. And then that belief system falls apart. Is that something that you think about as well? Or is that just me sitting there watching football?
100%, man. That comes down to culture, right? When you build the right culture, then it doesn't matter who you have in that team, right? Because the culture comes first, and then everyone acts in line with that culture. Like, you look at the All Blacks, that's why they've been so dominant for so long, man. I think it was after was it 2007 World Cup in South Africa? I think they got knocked out by the French, and then
that was 99, I think. Oh, maybe it happened. No, it might have happened twice. But 99, the All Blacks got. Oh, that was the actual final. I think mate, my brain's fogging up. They either beat the French beat the All Blacks either in the final or the game before the final. No, I think the French beat them before the final in 99, and then Australia beat the French. But yeah, it's happened a couple of times to the All Blacks, and then you're right. I'll let you finish the story, but you're right. They were like, we got to fix our mindset. It's not our physicality.
Exactly, man. Yeah, because they went into the game and they had this kind of thing hanging over the team about, being knocked out in the finals, and then the French knocked them out. I can't remember if they beat them in the final or in the semis, but afterwards they went through a complete overhaul of the process, and they got their senior leaders in. The senior players, and went, let's make a leadership team, and let's give these guys a lot more ownership. And that leadership team then started making the rules, and was like, if you're rocking up 5 minutes late to training, that's not acceptable. And if you're going out and getting on the piss when we're supposed to be on a curfew, then that's also not acceptable. And over the years, having the right people in the right positions and building that culture has allowed them to, allow that culture to then lead those decisions and those actions and behaviors, because all the players are going to tie in line with that. And if they don't, then they're out, man. How many All Blacks have you seen that are fucking really good players, play a couple games with All Blacks and never play for them again because they've got a no dickhead rule, right? They don't fit the team. And, they think that they're bigger than the team. And the All Blacks culture has built this... what would you call it? Built this, I guess, character where the team comes before everyone else, every individual. And
the same the other way. Like, I noticed when over the last decade, when the All Blacks were on their roll, like, even if one player had a shit game 3 games in a row, he wasn't getting dropped because they knew that that dude was part of the team and he was probably going through shit and he was got to come through it. The Wallabies, on the other hand, it's like, they played this week. They play in a fortnight. I don't know any of the players because it's a completely different team. Every game, they're just changing their team. And it's like, that is a team run by managers who want money, not by people who understand the culture of, like, unity, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, everything I just spoke about is in a book called Legacy by James Kerr, and it talks about, the culture that they created after that 2007 World Cup, and then, obviously what happened then New Zealand won the 2011 World Cup, and then 2015, and they went on a roll, man. They just created this culture where that culture then dictated how people would act and respond and behave in that team environment.
And it gets, I mean, I don't want to get too woo-woo, but I'm everyone talks about mindset.
Yes,
and they're like,
mate.
I do. I love it. No, I'm a firm believer. There's 2 things. There's energy and there's this kind of manifesting reality, right? The energy one we'll leave for another day because that's about crystals and kumbaya. But I think there's a lot of... My point is, it's like, let's not write it off just because we haven't had another 200 years of research into it. I'm like, maybe in 200 years we're going to find some stuff and go, hey, maybe that energy stuff needs more investigation. I think this manifesting reality needs more scientific exploration. Like you sit down with a footy team or a professional athlete and you say, visualize success and it will come to you. And everyone's like, I'm good with that. I accept that as a thing. Like if my coach says to me, just visualize winning, and then you win, you're okay with that. But then you say, hey, if you sit down and you visualize and you can manifest your own reality, everyone's like, oh, okay, hippie, see you later. I'm like, I think we need to do more research into the All Blacks would be a great case study because they had a reputation that was, they beat us for the last 2.5 years, but don't worry in the World Cup because they will choke. And that was their reputation. And then they flipped the switch and they're like, not anymore, we're not. And then they just went on a roll. And we accept that to go, someone changed their headspace and everyone's like, yep, I'm okay with that. Green tick, that fits my scientific evaluation. Good to go. And then you're like, all right, if you're having a shitty day for 5 days in a row, sit down and visualize having a really good day. And everyone's like, no, that's woo-woo hippie. I'm like, that's the same thing. We just, I mean, I don't know how you do research on it. This is far above my pay grade. I just think some of these coaching kind of resilience and these mindset pieces need to be looked at and go, hey, we need to start quantifying what's happening here. I don't know how.
Yeah, listen, man, you look at those professional teams and a lot of professional athletes and sports teams are moving down that route of having sports psychologists. Why? Because that is a fucking, a big piece of the puzzle that a lot of people, up until recently have left on the table. Now, obviously they're professional teams, so they're paying for these sports psychologists to come in. The average person doesn't have access to that. So they need to do their own work. That means you need to listen to podcasts, you need to read books, you need to do your own fucking study and research and talk to the right people that, is going to put you in, the right mindset that's going to allow you to manifest the thoughts, the actions, behaviors, the habits that you need to put into practice every single fucking day to get you to where you want to be.
Mate, that argument, I'm going to take this out as a clip because that we need to push that to everyone, not just DVA, but like the psych industry in general. At the moment, psychs are taught how to dig up your trauma and try and put a Band-Aid on it or fix it. That's fantastic. I look at it and go, let's treat them like a PT and go, you are going to go, if you've had an injury, you're going to go to an ex-phys. I get it. You need a reactive recovery model. That's fine. That's a very small percentage of the population. Most people are going to a trainer because they're like, I just don't want to get diabetes and fucking explode because I'm getting really fat. And it's like, cool. Are you going there to dig up the negative and just try and put a Band-Aid on it? Or are you going to go there and the PT is going to be like, you're at the shitty end of the spectrum. Let's get you to the fit end of the spectrum. That's what everyone's doing. That's what a sports psychologist does. It's like, no matter where you are, I want you to be the optimum, high-performing version of yourself. That's what, again, this is just my opinion. Every psych should be operating off that model. You go in and you're like, hey, I'm pretty depressed, I'm down, blah, blah, blah. It's not like, hey, let's dig up the trauma. It's like, make me a high-performing, happy version of myself. That's simple.
That's the issue, man, is like people go in and they talk to a psych and they say, hey, make me the happy version of blah, blah, blah. No, you need to fucking take responsibility and do that yourself. Yeah, because talking about what you said then about, people going and talking to a psych and it's normally reactive, as a trainer, a lot of the times when I do have general population clients come to me and they're trying to make changes in their life, it's because they don't like where they're at and they want to move away from something and it's reactive, right? When I'm working with professional athletes, it's proactive. We're looking ahead. They need to prepare for something, so we need to get there. It's moving towards something. Two completely different directions, man. One's moving away from something. Once you're far enough away from something, you stop moving. If you're walking along and you're about to step in dog shit and you smell it, you move far enough away where you don't smell it anymore. Okay, you don't need to keep moving.
I agree somewhat. I think it's all the same spectrum. So down one end, you're obese, you got diabetes, you're about to explode. Up the other end, you're winning belts around your waist because you're the best fighter in the world. That's the same spectrum, but you're 100% right. It's about which direction you're looking at. So the further you go from center to the left, to the obese end, you go, hey, I just want I want to push that wall away. I've got to get back up that end a little bit. But you're focused on the dying end, whereas the fighters, they're so close to the high performing, and that's all they can see. There's no way Peter Yan wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror and goes, if I have another 5,000 days of eating shitty food, I'm going to get diabetes. Like, he's not even worried about that end. But, I mean, I just want to see a world where psychs look at the full spectrum, not just middle to left or middle to right. I think that would solve some problems.
100%, man. I absolutely agree with you. But when do you have access to a psych?
Oh, that's the big problem. That is the number one friction point. There's not enough, and there's not enough. The ones that are there aren't qualified. And I guess, again, half of these podcasts is just me processing ideas and getting guest information.
That's how we organise our thoughts.
Exactly. And I think we have, at the moment, we've got trainers like yourself who are, you do some of the middle range stuff, but you are focusing on high-end clients and you are looking in that direction. That is the equivalent of a sports psychologist, I guess. And then all the other psychs that you go and see are in the middle. I don't know. I mean, I have never done a psych degree.
Well, I mean, you can't flex. You bring this up all the time. You can't flex your mental health. And so when you're sitting there and you're going home and you're knocking back, a carton of piss on it over a weekend, and it's not until the wheels fall off that you're like, well, fuck, maybe, instead of being like, no, I need to sort some shit out. And I think that's high school really just teaches you, some real basic shit, like how to write some words down. In my case, not so much. Maybe some social sciences, some real basic shit where you can go out, pay some taxes, and literally be a taxpayer for society. But it doesn't teach you what Kobe was saying, and what you brought up before is that how do I make myself better? I need to read. I need to do podcasts. It doesn't teach you these healthy habits to succeed in life. What it does is it teaches you to be what this current system appears to be without the elders around to teach these people is be a taxpayer, pay taxes, don't die until you've paid enough taxes. We need to teach people like Cobes and yourself to succeed, to optimize your performance, and these other things that you can learn that you don't have to learn when you're 40, having a midlife crisis, 2 marriages, and go, why didn't she like me? Because you're a cunt, mate.
He's dropped it. The big one. Oh, well. There goes that podcast. But no, yeah, I agree. The social model is what needs to be looked at more than anything. How we, oh mate, you're the segue master. How we bring this back to training fighters, I don't know.
I don't know, mate. I think it's a belief system, Cove, and I think what you've done, your persona, your knowledge, all these things we've spoken about, belief and superstitions, but the belief structure, he believed in you and you were part of his system and his superstition to achieve that. And I don't know, looking outside, looking in, mate, like I said, I'm privileged to get to know you from a personal perspective. I don't have to pay for you 20-minute, conversations, but I think you've achieved it, mate. And I hope people they give you the credit they do in the next couple of months, and they don't start sprouting off the overnight success shit, because it's just not true, mate. And especially knowing what you went through even to get to Thailand and the decisions you had to make to start this life, mate. So yeah. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that, man.
I do have one question that, so I mean, me asking questions after that is going to sound like we're jumping all over the place, but I love the concept of holistic health, right? So, but for me at the moment, my stage in life, I'm 36. I don't have any ambitions to become a professional athlete. I want to optimize myself so that I can just raise kids, live as long as possible, as healthy as possible, and to steal what's his name? What's Sissen's first name? Mark Sissen's line was, I just want to look good naked when I'm old. And I'm like, I think that's where I'm heading. I have no grand ambitions. I just want a holistically healthy life, both mentally and physically. Do you find that professional fighters, whether it's Peter Yan or any of the other fighters you've trained, did they put parts of their life aside to be obsessed with fighting, or are they well-rounded, holistically healthy kind of people?
Great question. It depends. Someone like Jan, for example, when we were in fight camp in Russia, his family wasn't there. It was just us, and we were just focused on the task at hand. We were constantly looking ahead. This is where we need to be on this date. Everything that we're putting in through this training camp is going to get him peaking at the right time. That means no distractions, you know. But then obviously after that, after the, you know, he shone under the lights, he got the belt wrapped around his waist. You know, he had time off with his family and spent another week or so in Dubai, and then went home, spent a little bit of time at home and kind of unwound and, you know, really dialed back his training and kind of just lived, man. But, you know, this is something that he's done over many years because he has figured out that, you know, there are seasons of life. And if you want to really excel at one thing, then you need to invest everything into that thing and then remove all other distractions. But then there's going to be a point where, you know, there's a point of diminishing returns where you need to then step away from that, rest, relax, unwind, go through a period where, you know, something else becomes your number one priority. And then, you know, once you get another target, once you get another goal, once you've got another date, then, you know, you make those adjustments. So, you know, life is all about prioritizing, man. You know, we have priorities whether we name them or not. You know, and that shows up in what you do on a daily basis. And if your priorities are, you know, watching Netflix as opposed to getting sleep, you don't need to name that, man. Like, it's already fucking happening, right? So I think looking at different seasons of life, constantly assessing what's actually important to you, and then aligning your actions to tie in with that. I think that's absolutely essential, man. And, you know, that's a fucking never-ending process. You're always looking at that. You're always looking at everything that's happening in your life, and, you know, you're trying to juggle those balls. And if you try and juggle too many balls at once, you know, you're going to drop something. So, you know, looking at a couple of priorities and going, right, where does this sit on my list of my hierarchy of values? How can I then start scheduling my day to tie in with that?
Absolutely, mate. Love it. Sorry, Max, I knew you were trying to wrap up because we are on the clock. We've got the boys in England coming up next. And I saw you trying to wrap up, and I'm like, no, I've got to get this question out. I don't care how long it takes.
Mate, no, look, that was just, I mean, that is an honest assessment of what I've looked at, the outside looking in, mate. And like I said, I really appreciate the time, man. It's been back and forward. Amazing to watch and live vicariously through you, and we'll keep getting you on if we can get any insights as we go along. And look, if there's an opportunity while you're in a camp and you want to send some odds our way for the next, let us know, mate.
If Yard's going into the next fight with a broken rib, let us know. We'll go heavy against him.
Bet on him, mate.
Yeah, that's probably right. You bet on a Russian with a broken rib. That's probably a good bet.
No, mate. Mate, always a pleasure to have you, mate. Wise, humble, and educated, mate. Thanks very much. Love you, mate.
Thank you, boys. Really appreciate it. Love your work.
Cheers, bro.